Hi, hey, and all those other greetings, Spy Adventurers. I'm Jake Spins, here to give you guys a quick disclaimer before the video starts so that you guys know this is part 2 of the Smash Up Episode 2 video. If you guys have missed Episode 1, basically what it contained was finding out what characters we were going to mash up, as well as actually doing it. This episode is fully the background. I said it was ambitious, and trust me, it's ambitious. So if you guys are ready for a 20-minute ride, then you guys are right. Well, you guys are in the right place. If you haven't seen that first video, definitely make sure to check that out, and then you guys can continue on here. Alright, let's get on to the art. Oh man, here we go. It's time to put in some grounding. Yeah, that would have went off better if my timing was a little better. But here we go. So, as we covered in the first episode, you guys can see that we have Pichu's mixed with the Animal Crossing clothes. I went a lot more in depth about what those clothes were, but here's a little bit of my concept for the background. Usually I do have an end slate giving a small story, but my concept for this was having an Animal Crossing world as the background, but that was inhabited by Pichus. So the basic concept of this is that Tom Nook ended up starting a town. He was trying his best, he was trying his hardest, and he said, you know what, this first town isn't working, it's in a really bad location, and I give up. I need to start new, I need a better plot of land, and that's the plot of land where you show up. The mayor shows up, the human villagers, the animal villagers, that's where they show up. And this first one, it goes uninhabited for years. So you've got Nook's Cranny, you've got museum stuff, you've got the general basic principle, but all the fruit starts going away, the trees, they just start decaying, and it just becomes sad. Now, a few Pokemon come in. This being the Pichu. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but basically the Pichu come in and they're like, we want a home. But because they're not a civilization, they don't have any money set up. They just find a bunch of old clothes that the villagers have and they put them on. They do their hair up a little bit because there's some wigs that are based on Animal Crossing hairstyles. There's still nets. There's still shovels. Because when Tom Nook said, hey, you know what? Screw this. I'm out. He just left everything. Nothing was of value, and he needed to get out before the loan sharks started coming for him, you know? So these Pichu were able to take advantage of that, and eventually, where you'll see in the art, they'll start actually changing the architecture. But for right now, a lot of it you're going to be seeing is going to be a very Animal Crossing base. You're going to be seeing me making trees, like this one that we're doing right now, which it's kind of tricky because for the trees, they have those little wood carvings, and I was originally going to do different patterns, but I decided to go for that one because they're just a very simple basis. And one of the hardest things to do, honestly, other than just the ground, which wasn't really hard, it was more tedious because I had to put all the squares and make it look like actual Animal Crossing ground. But one of the more frustrating and tedious parts of this was putting in all the leaves, because as you can see, I ended up copying and pasting it, and even though complete in my opinion, it doesn't look fantastic, it doesn't look perfect. I feel like it does represent what I'm trying to do with it, and we're actually going to do some pretty cool stuff with the trees later on themselves. So yeah, unfortunately this is going to take a while to do the leaves, and then we're going to copy and paste a whole bunch of them. So instead of really being able to talk about the art, I guess we can talk about some other stuff. So recently in Sword and Shield news, if you guys don't know, Nintendo or whoever, I honestly don't know who did this, but they did a 24-hour nature documentary live stream. Now, I had very little clue about what this was or anything about this, so thankfully I didn't watch this. And if you know what it is, you'll be like, oh yeah, thankfully you did not watch this. And then other people might be like, but why are you super thankful that you didn't end up watching this 24-hour nature documentary about Pokemon? It's nature and Pokemon. Who wouldn't love that? And while in general, yes, I do agree with that, it turns out instead of actually showing anything super interesting or important, they kind of just live streamed this empty forest with, a few luminous type of mushrooms, which, sure, it would be great to fall asleep if you had the right music. And they had this one, like, pink demon-like Pokemon jump out and make some weird noise. But the only other thing I've really heard other than that and a random mysterious Pokemon being in the background was the Galar Ponyta, which I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it actually looks really cool. It's completely white and it's got this cotton candy type of hair instead of fire. I'm very curious, like, what type it's gonna be, because you look at an Alolan Vulpix and you'd be like, oh, that's ice. But even though that would be the make sense type of thing, going from fire and ice, it's also like, well, it's not a very icy type of look. It's more of a knight in shining armor, white horse type of look, where I'm thinking it kind of looks a little more like clouds. And honestly, I don't know where they'd go with that, because it kind of, like, if it is an ice type, I'd be okay with that, and I'd definitely be okay with that because I love ice types. But it seems a little bit strange per its design. That being said, it has no wings, so it's not like a Pegasus, I don't believe. Its evolution might be, which would be sweet if the second one added, like, flying to it and just made it a Pegasus. But I'm thinking that maybe we're gonna get some type of a new typing, or maybe it'll be like a fairy typing, which going from fire to fairy would kind of be interesting. But that being said, the Alolan Wheezing that they did added fairy to poison. So would they want to do another Pokemon that's switching from one type to fairy? Because it's definitely not fire anymore. Honestly, I honestly don't know. Seems pretty interesting. I'm sure at some point you guys will know, and I'm sure once the game comes out, there will be a bunch of comments saying, "Hey, this is what Alolan Ponyta's type is." But by then, we'll actually fully know. All right, so back to the art for a second. So before I ended up saying about the fruit decaying. Now, the only reason I said that was to give a kind of general basis on why there are Pokeballs in the trees. Because I had this idea when combining all of them that it would be such a great and grand idea if instead of fruits, it was Pokeballs. And all of my ideas kind of curved because I usually don't do a bunch of background type stuff. So I figured, you know what? If I'm going to do Animal Crossing and Pokemon, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to do it the correct way, and I'm going to merge every single thing that I can. And as you're going to see, I believe... Okay, I must have been like changing music or something. But I ended up having all the layers go away so that I could copy the tree, and then there would be more trees all over the place. Now, as you guys probably remember in the Samus and Rosalina smash up video, I ended up having a very large segment of that, a good half of that, being shading the characters because I didn't have to worry about a background. Now, granted, eventually I do end up shading all of the characters in, but it's off camera because all of this together actually combined to a good like 6 hours, which is another reason why I did this into two-parter, because I was like, yeah, that's 40-minute video of just art. So I don't think, like, my method of doing it, because usually people try to go for 8 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever, but I like to keep it slow enough so I can at least commentate, which at times kind of ends up hurting me, but it also ends up helping me. But for the shading, I just did that all off camera, so there will be shading, except for a few things, but no worries on that. So right now we're actually working on Nook's Cranny, which, what would be a good Pichu type of name? I guess, you know, you could go Pichu Cranny, but that doesn't really work as well. So, Nook's Electric Store? Who knows? Some kind of Pichu pun or electric type. But, I kind of have this mental thing, this image in my head that all of these smash up videos are in a separate amalgamation world of my own creation, and they just have a little bit of backstory. I don't remember if I did one for the Rosa and Samus type of thing. But if you guys have any name suggestions for the for Nook's Cranny and all the other buildings, let me know, because they are actually going to be Pichu-fied or Pikachu-fied, whichever one you want to go. Because technically I did Pikachu ears. I didn't do Pichu ears just because I felt that it would be a lot easier. And logically, these Pichu would eventually go and form into Pikachu, unless they don't want to, you know. And then these little two characters in the front, as I've said, the girl's trying to catch the boy, because I thought that'd be kind of cute. And maybe when they grow up, they'll be the two who run this whole entire crazy town, Pichu Village, whatever you want to call it, Pichu Crossing. They'll run the whole thing. They'll get married. They'll have little tiny Pichus of their own, and they'll really raise the whole entire town. And you might be like, what is Jepson Pichu and Inkling Pichu? Like, how would their relationship flourish? Well, I mean, they're Pichus, so they're still kids. And that's crazy thinking that these kids are gonna do a better job than Tom Nook. But keep in mind, there's no money system. There's no greed. There's no, hey, you want to come to this house? You gotta pay an arm and a leg for it. No, it's, hey, look, empty house. And then, supposedly, there's going to be other houses from other villagers. And then they're also technically wild animals, so they don't all need houses. And who's to say that the museum can't be a house, or their little gathering? They're just trying to get along and make a nice little civilization, and I'd like to think that it worked, even though they are at the moment children, and the thought of them just randomly getting married after just creating them almost brings a tear to my eye, almost makes me a proud parent of my little creations, knowing that their future it's a bright future, and we can all be happy for them. For the museum itself, though, for Pichu-fying it, I just kind of added a yellow and black stripe, because if you add Pikachu ears to everything or a Pikachu tail, it doesn't really work all that well. And oh my gosh, I'm sorry, but seeing the sky being dropped, Chicken Little has the hugest smile, or the largest fear, I don't know. But seeing the sky come down, it really just made that feeling of, oh my gosh, this art is coming together, and there's more. Because I decided, you know, it's a Pokemon town. Why not have other creatures inhabiting it? You've got nets, you've got fishing, you've got so many systems in Animal Crossing, so they should be shown here. So I decided to do some other Gen 1 Pokemon, even though I know Pichu isn't a Gen 1 Pokemon, but let's just gloss over that detail. But I decided, you know what? We want to make sure that you've got this flourishing town and make it very Animal Crossing-esque. And one thing other than the villagers being there, those two Pichus, and I'm not adding any more Pichus, just because if I did, we'd be here forever. This would never end, you know? Maybe I'll make like different sections if I ever really feel like it, or if you guys really like this concept that much, then maybe I'll do that. But there's the little cute Caterpie! And it makes me very excited to be able to make more art of Pokemon, because I got to see what would my artwork look like if I made a Caterpie. And while this isn't a fully fleshed out, oh my gosh, this is insane, this is a different type of Caterpie, you know, bug and flying, which, I mean, granted it goes into a Butterfree, but could you imagine a Caterpie with wings? Like, just like little angel wings or something. Or like it's got a mid-form instead of a Metapod. Okay? It doesn't go into cocoon, it just ends up growing Butterfree wings. And speaking of Butterfree, you guys get to see what my Butterfree looks like! And again, it's like in video games when there's a low poly model. You know, it's going to be far away, it can't be too detailed, unfortunately. So instead, you make something that's a little more low resolution, because when it's in the background, okay, you can get away with that. If it was in the foreground, I would have gone way, way more detail. But I feel like it turned out really nice and well too. And it helps flesh it out because little bugs on trees, that's not the only type of bug you have. You also have butterflies. Granted, you do have things like flies. You have fly nests. I didn't put that in because making a beautiful Pichu town, to me, does not involve flies. Are there any, like, gross insect type of Pokemon that would really work with the fly nests, though? Probably. I just can't think of them because I just don't know Pokemon as much. You know, and that's one reason I'm kind of hoping they continue doing the Let's Go series. Even though, yes, I did stop doing my playthrough of Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. But I'm hoping they do that because I'll be able to be introduced to more Pokemon and doing more remakes, which the next one would be Diamond and Pearl, which I'm so happy about because honestly, even though, yes, it would be the same price to basically get the original games of Diamond and Pearl, I would love to see them remade and see how Dawn looks because as a kid, I just loved Dawn. I don't know why. Dawn was just my Poké Girl. No clue. Before I even started playing Pokemon, and while Hilda and Rosa are super cool, I ended up, you know, really liking Serena, and Serena is one of my favorites, and basically everyone's favorite. I've just always had this random attachment to Dawn, so being able to play as her and see what she'd be like in a more modern age, and getting to know more Pokemon that I don't know, that would be awesome. Now, right here, I decided to put some Pidgeon. The main reason is because in Animal Crossing, which I did this like Mario and Nintendo style Isabelle drawing a long time ago, So I guess just Animal Crossing drawings and artwork just brings out the best in my variety and potential to make the best things that I can. But one thing about Animal Crossing, and sorry for going on that tangent, is that you actually have balloon presents. You know, you got the little balloons that are floating, drifting in the sky. You got a present attached to them, and it brings reason and life to the slingshot. Now, I'm not saying that you should go out looking for birds with presents and having a slingshot in hand, or that's what they're doing. But I thought, you know what? That mixed with the fact that the mail carrying system is, you know, Pete and Pelly. It's all pelicans. This also works, and I'm now thinking about this, because what if instead of it being, hey, here's a balloon furniture, this is the replacement for the mail carrying system? Is these Pidgeys just being nice, and maybe this Pidgey just randomly finds a present? And it's only one Pidgey that has the present, because when you look in the sky, it's usually fairly desolate for Animal Crossing, which is something that I kind of wanted to flesh out because there's a lot of flying Pokemon, even though these are the only 3 Pokemon that I did besides Pichu. It just seemed like a really great way to tie the whole world together, and I realized that there was a lot of potential to make more and just fill some empty space. While empty space is not an enemy whatsoever, I figured since I was going ambitious and I made the resources, I might as well just go for it, you know, because why not? Okay, so not gonna lie, this is like the thirdest part because, well, of audio recording, because as you guys probably can tell, I can out-talk myself. I can talk so fast that my brain needs to stop, and I just need to slow down, and it kills my throat. And I apologize to anybody who gets really frustrated with me because I talk way too fast. So hopefully you guys aren't seeing that as a problem. But one thing I would like to point out as I'm just trying to catch my breath is that, as I mentioned before, I did shading in between these recordings. Now, if you look at the tree, you can see that there's a little bit of light green in there. There's a few darker for the leaves. The trunks I didn't do just because there's those different browns and I copy and pasted them. And then for, as I said, for the Pidgeys, I wanted to add a few more. So I made them smaller, and later on I played around with the adjustments until I was really happy. Eventually I ended up adding Butterfree, but before I did that, I ended up making the present, which I did the feet 2 separate ones just so that it looked like the present was being held inside of both. Sure, I could have actually had it be clutched within the grasp of the claw of the Pidgey, but I was like, you know what? I don't have to go that complicated. I can just make the foot. Also, I didn't really think about it at that point. And for the most part, oh my gosh, I almost said they're all solid colors, and I'm like, no, this isn't the story you've been working on, Spins. This is actually Pokemon artwork with tons and tons of color, tons of gradients, and that's why it's done this way. So it can look nice, and you can shade it and stuff. And I'm not gonna lie, this artwork took ridiculously long to do. It took so long because I had to set everything up. I had to make sure that everything was right, and it took months. It took like 1 or 2 months just to make alone. Sure, it took a longer time to upload the Rosa and Samus crossover, but this took a while to make. And the last detail, other than swapping stuff around, that I added was the addition of the Premier Balls as the last Pokeballs. These originally were going to be Master Balls, but I wanted to do something more simple, and I also wanted to do something that I do in Pocket Camp, which is putting them on the ground because I like to shake the tree, let the Pokeballs or the fruits grow onto the trees, and just have them on the ground. Anyway, though, guys, that's it. So let's go to the outro. Alright, guys, so there you have it. Normally I show my face in these, but I wanted to be able to make sure that you guys were able to see the full artwork. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I talked my butt off in this art video, which hopefully you guys were okay with, but we pretty much covered a lot of the stuff that I wanted to, and as I said, a lot of this you weren't able to see be shaded because I just didn't record that because it would have been way too long. But I ended up going back, I shaded the Pidgeys, I copy and pasted them. I don't think I did for the Butterfree just because they were far away. The Caterpie I might have, but the grounds as well as the buildings are shaded, the Pichus are shaded. The only thing that's in the foreground that isn't shaded is the tree itself. But honestly, this is probably one of my most favorite pieces of artwork that I've done because I was able to flex my creativity. I was able to be as ambitious as physically possible. And while I can't promise that ambition for every single piece of art, for every single Smash Up video, I do still want to be as creative as I can and make the best art that I can. And this shows that it's possible for me to go great lengths with this art style because there's still more learning to do. There's still so much that I can do. And I'm not going to lie, this is actually going to be a piece that I am going to have printed out. I'm going to have it framed, and I'm going to have it on my art wall. I haven't shown around my room yet just because it's not ready to be shown off, but I have this art wall that's by my art desk that I would love to put this on. I also showed my sister, and she loved it so much that I'm actually going to have one printed out for her, and I'm going to hand sign it on the frame, which is just going to be super cool. Not sure when I'll do that, and I'm not going to record a reaction video, but just know that because I like this so much, I'm really hoping that you guys like this so much, and that maybe we can do more of this. So, yeah, let me know what you guys want this town to be called, and you know, Nook's Cranny, the museum, all that type of stuff, as well as do you like the more ambitious one part, two part where I go over the character actual artwork in the first part, and then the second part I go and I do an elaborate or just general background, or if you want a simple background like the older art videos, just let me know just so I know how you guys are feeling. And the only other thing I really didn't touch on was the clouds in the sky, which is my new way of doing clouds instead of these just very cartoony three lump type of clouds that are just more puffy, which I might return to at some point. But the new way of doing it is that there's this sand type of spray. I don't know what it's called. It's like the spray tool, and I just go crazy on the sky until I think that it looks right. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this and enjoyed the video. As I said, let me know in the comment section down below, And if you guys have any suggestions for series or anything like that, or what series you like the most to see, let me know that as well. And I'm going to stop dragging out this outro so that I can save this and get it out to you guys as soon as possible. Alright, guys, keep your toes safe.